Hello guys, did you miss me? Probably not, but here I am again with my new tutorial training adventure, which, as you probably have guessed from my desktop, is about explaining design patterns. In particular, explaining them with the help of the C# language. So why do I think that design patterns are important? It's because they are the second step that a good programmer takes after he has mastered or at least gotten familiar with the language like Java or C# and starts to understand that a good program is not just about the detail of the language, the syntax, but also and especially about the general structure of the program and how extensible, how elegant, how understandable the software that you write is. So it's basically all about a famous saying that every moron can write code that a compiler understands, but a good programmer is someone who can write code that other people can easily understand. And if they can understand it, of course, they can maintain it and they can extend it easily. And that's the whole point of object-oriented programming. So, design patterns, in my opinion, are a very good way to get started in your adventure of object-oriented design. And to understand them, I guess just a little bit of history it could be useful. Design patterns are actually a term that comes from architecture, not software architecture, but the one, let's say the real one, the one about buildings. And they are the result of the work of a guy who's called Christopher Alexander, which is a famous architect that still works at the University of California, I think, which, by the way, is one of the coolest universities ever. And the idea is that you often encounter one problem in different occasion, in different context, but it's basically the same problem that present to yourself again and again and again. So if you find a good solution to this problem, it's actually useful to refine it and to publish so that the next time that you or a coworker is confronted with another instance of this problem, he has a solution ready, a solution which is well proven and has been established to be effective. And I'm sure you can start to understand and imagine how this concept can fit very well object-oriented design and software engineering. So I hope that you already can understand that design patterns are not about a particular language like Java or C# or Python. They are language agnostic. They are basically proven design solution to recurrent design problems. And usually when you want to explain a design pattern, when you want to present a design pattern, you first talk about the problem that the design pattern is trying to solve. Then you typically present a UML diagram if the design pattern is about object-oriented programming or anyway about a technology that's easily modeled with UML. Because actually, yes, design patterns are not even about object-oriented programming per se. You can have design patterns that are about different programming paradigms, but of course the most famous one are about object-oriented programming, and that's because of the predominance that this style of programming has had in the last few years, and also because, as you can see, the whole idea of design patterns came about in the context of object-oriented software. But anyway, I was saying that you first present the program, then typically a UML representation of the design pattern solution, and then an implementation in your favorite language, which could be C#, Java, Python, or whatever. And actually, the detail of the implementation will vary quite a bit between, say, Python or Java or C#, but the idea, the design, the main idea, of course, is independent of the implementation. So we owe the concept of design patterns in software development to these four guys: Eric Gama, Richard Helm, Ralph Johnson, and John Vlissides. Sorry guys if I pronounce your name in a way that's probably far from correct. And these guys made this very useful and beautiful compilation of the main design patterns that were actually being used, let's say, in the wild by people. They made a very useful categorization and distillation of this idea. Don't be surprised if you find between the design pattern something that you kind of already knew, maybe a solution that was similar to one that you used in one of your programming projects, because that's actually how design patterns are born. You know, they get discovered by work by many people, and finally people realize that actually this is a concept that it's worth keeping, because it's useful in more than just one or few circumstances, and then it basically becomes design patterns. It's not like first they get conceived in some sort of academic ivory tower and then they get delivered to us developers. But though this is the Bible of the design patterns, I would not recommend this book as a first reading. First, because of the language choice, because the implementation of the design pattern in this book here is are given in C++ and Smalltalk, which are probably not the most user-friendly and used languages nowadays, and also because sometimes these guys tend to be a little bit more, let's say, abstract, terse than what's actually needed, and that actually contributed a lot to the legend that design patterns are difficult, or they're very academical. They are anyway like a tough subject that only a few elected ones can understand, which is total bullshit, because design patterns are very simple. They are actually object-oriented design common sense. Once you have a solid understanding of what object-oriented programming is, and in particular about the meaning and the significance of polymorphism. So don't be scared, they are actually very, very simple concepts. So, without further ado, let's start our adventure. And to start with, well, we actually have to start with what is the hello world of design patterns, which is the singleton design patterns, because it's the simplest of them all. And for this reason, actually, it tends to be the one that comes up every time when one does a programming interview, because it's a simpler one, it's the simplest one, and it doesn't get you in trouble easily. But it's an important one, it's an interesting one. So let's learn it. But please do not bore anyone with it as the first example of a design pattern at your next job interview. Okay? You guys ready? Let's go with the singleton design pattern.